Hello and welcome back to Mad Mouse Games. Today I'm going to be painting the Reaper Bones Stone Golem that comes in the Coreset. And this miniature is really easy to paint up. And so I just want to do a quick how to, not only just to paint this miniature, but how to paint stone in general, because I think it's a pretty easy thing to do. And anytime you're painting stone, it can go really quick and look really good. So right now I'm just applying the base coat with a big huge brush to cover as much surface area as possible as quickly as possible. I just did a dark gray base coat, which I think is great for stone because after you wash it, it ends up looking really good. Um, this model in particular has metal gauntlets around its wrist, as well as a belt and a helmet. I chose to paint them a silver metallic, and if I could go back and do it again, I probably would have changed it to a brass or a bronze or something like that, just so it would stand out a little bit more on the miniature, because once it was all done getting painted, it didn't stand out that much, and I think it would look a lot better if it did stand out a little bit more. But while we're on the subject of painting with metallics, which is what I'm doing now, one thing I recommend is always using a different brush for your metallics than you would for your acrylic paints. Now, the reason for this is that most metallic paints have small actual flakes of metal in them. You can see that if you wash your brush off in like a cup or something like that, you can see the little metal particles floating around in the water after. Now, these are hard to clean out of your brush sometimes, and if you dip it into acrylics afterwards, you can smear that metallic specks where you put your acrylic paints, and it can really make it look not good because you can see all the little metal flakes in there. And so, if you're going to paint with metallics, I recommend using a different brush than what you normally use, and that will save you the trouble of having that problem. Now, with this miniature, after I did the base coats here, I went ahead and did just a light dry brush with well, actually, it was a heavy dry brush with a light gray. Uh, and the reason I did it before the wash is I wanted it to really have the wash bring those two colors together, the dark gray underneath and the light gray on the top surface layer. And so I did a real heavy dry brush of just light gray. I think this works really good for almost all stone. So if you're into making like your own scenery and stuff like that, it can look really good as well, and not just on minis. So here you can see me going in with the wash. I just did a black wash so it could soak down into all those crevices and cracks in the miniature, because you really want those to stand out and look good. And so I just went ahead, did a wash over everything, and I did a heavy wash as well. It was pretty thick in some parts, especially where there were deeper cracks, like at the back of his knees, which you'll see me painting a little bit later. But I thought it looked really good even just after the wash before I started highlighting. So then while your wash is drying, it's a good time to crack open a can of Dr. Pepper or any other inferior soda. Drink it, enjoy it while you wait for your mini to dry. And then when it's done, just get that light gray paint that you used as a dry brush. And right now I'm actually picking out the metallic parts because I wanted to do that first. Because if I did get any metallic paint on any other parts of the mini, I wanted to be able to cover it up with the light gray highlight I'm going to come back in with. So I just took the raised part of the metal surfaces, did a quick highlight with the metallic paint again, and then I went ahead and moved on to the light gray highlighting. Now, going into this, I was trying to think of the different ways that I wanted to highlight those areas, and what I decided doing was going to the places where there were cracks and putting the brightest highlight there. Now, the reason for this is that I wanted it to look like those parts of the stone golem had been chipped off, either by adventurers hitting it with their swords or axes, or just by normal wear and tear. Now, by doing this and doing it around the cracks, it looks like those cracks have been broken and that there's now a fresh layer of stone, kind of near the surface. So you'll see me start doing that here in just a second. Is going in. At first I tried to highlight just the top parts, and I decided that didn't look very good. And you can kind of see me doing a little technique here where I'm putting on kind of a thicker layer of paint and then dabbing it off with my thumb. Now, the reason I do this is it goes in and removes a lot of that paint. So if it's too bright, I go in and dab that off. So you can see me here picking out those little details, going around where the cracks are, and just picking out around those edges. Dry brushing a little bit in some of the areas where I wanted a the like cracks in the stone to stand out, and just going in, picking out all those details and trying to make it look good. Now again, I think this can work for just about anything you want to paint to look like stone. Is you just go in, you make a bunch of cracks, crevices, and then go back in and pick out around those. So here again, you can see me touching a lot of those areas with my fingers just to get that paint off, so that's just a tiny bit and it blends a little bit better with the rest of the mini. And I thought in the end it ended up looking pretty good. Again, this miniature, it's not hard to paint. It's basically, let's see, a metallic paint and then a dark gray and a light gray and a black wash. So you only need, 4 different paints to do this kind of a mini. And there's probably more you could do with it if you wanted to, but this is something that you can paint really quick. Like, I think it took me less than an hour to paint this whole thing. Maybe a little longer than an hour if you wait for the wash to dry all the way, which I highly recommend. But this is something you can do, the day of your game and just throw it down on the table so it's a cool little thing your players can fight against. Now, one thing I think is cool about the Stone Golem is that you can use it on a on your tabletop as just like a statue even. Like you can put it out there in front of your players and have it just be a statue. It doesn't even have to be something they fight. It can just be a piece of scenery. And it is on a base, so your players are probably going to think it's something they have to fight, but that could also make for some funny moments. So I mean, one thing I really like about minis like this is they can serve several purposes. Not only are they a monster, but it's something you can throw on the table to make it scenic so that your players have a more dynamic battle map. And that's probably something that I'll talk a little bit about at some time and do a little video on is, good ways to get your players to interact with your battlefield. But um, this is just something that I thought would be easy. I wanted to show you guys real quick. And I mean, this is something that, there were a lot of spots where I put paint and then I was like, nah, I don't want so much paint there. So I would dab it off. I mean, this is something you can make mistakes on and people won't even notice because it just looks like it blends together and like that's the way it should or could be. And you don't have to even spend that much time on it. Like I said, after the wash, I probably could have stopped and just left the mini like that, but I just wanted to come back in with the highlighting and make those stand out. So again, the only thing I would have changed if I did this again was change the metallic color, because as you can see, it blends in pretty good with the just gray of the mini itself, and I think that kind of leads to monochromatic look to the mini, which isn't the best, but on the bright side, I mean, it doesn't drastically stand out and draw attention away from some of the smaller details there on this miniature's face. Like, one thing I've been so surprised about with these bone minis is they're plastic, but they have so much detail. So as you can see here, I mean, you can see all those cracks, the crevices. You can make out the face on the mini, the ears, like all the different like stony muscle things that it has. It's impressed me what Reaper has done. So, anyways, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more, subscribe, like. Let me know if there's anything from the Reaper's core set or Dungeon Dwellers or fan favorite expansion that you want to see painted, and I will paint it up for you. And until next time, have a good one and enjoy your night.